I am pumped to welcome to Forward world class poker champion, best selling author of the book in my hand, Die with Zero, getting all you can from your money and your life, hedge fund manager, epic investor, Bill Perkins. Welcome to Forward, Bill.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so you tell the story too, which I laughed out loud. So your boss tells you, look, uh, you're doing it wrong. You should not be trying to scrimp and save, $1,000 if you're here to make a fortune. And you're like, oh yeah, you're right. So you start spending too much. And then you fall asleep at your station and get fired.
Yeah, this is another job, but yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you end up switching to another job as a broker, which is not what you precisely want to do. But that ends up leading you to a role in Houston, Texas, where you are now.
Right.
And there are a lot of people that might have hesitated about moving to Houston from New York, especially if they wanted to work in, trading, because they're like, oh, like all the action is in New York. But then you looked at it and said, oh, like sure, I'll make this move. And there were a couple of principles in there where in your book you talk about trying to be bold when you're young and think about what you have to lose, because a lot of people overemphasize what they might be giving up and underestimate what they might be gaining by
Right.
making a decision.
Right. They don't look at the opportunity cost, right? Like of the cost of inaction. And I was one of those people that was like, I'm never moving south on the Mason-Dixon line. Like, what the hell? Never go to Texas. Like Texas was like rednecks and racists and cowboys. And, I had this stereotypical image largely informed from past and TV, right? And I didn't really know what Texas was like. I hadn't been there, but I was like, I had the Texas of the '60s in my head, and so not the Texas that it was when I moved down there. But fortunately for me, I was so passionate about becoming a trader and wanting to do it, and this kind of like arrogant belief that I could do it, that I would have moved to Siberia. I would have went anywhere. I was like, what's the worst that can happen? You know what I mean? If they get me, they get me. This, and I made the move, and luckily I had that attitude about it to do it. And as I look at other people in different careers, I see people like, oh, there's this job, and you can move here, and they're like, oh, I don't know anybody there. I have to move here, et cetera. And a lot of jobs or opportunities go unfilled. Not necessarily that people can't do it, but they're not willing to take the emotional risk of moving, right? Meeting new friends, that friction, right? And so they stay in a situation that may be less than ideal or even painful. Like I say, one of my sayings is people will avoid pain to live in misery. And I'm not saying everybody's in misery that doesn't move, but some gradient of that happens with that fear.
Yeah, you talk about a sales clerk who doesn't like her job, and you're like, "Hey, you need to leave because the fact is, you could get another job you don't like, immediately."
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that rang true to me. A lot of, and so the book has different guidance for people at different life stages, and for young people, it's around trying to home in on what you can gain from taking action as opposed to what you might lose, and taking more risks when you have less to lose, like be bolder when you have fewer
Yeah.
responsibilities.
Yeah, the downside is right, like, at the end of the day, when I was like scrimping and saving and the risk of the floor is like I could have got a job literally at a fast food restaurant and got paid more, right? Like they purposely pay you low because of the opportunity set that's there and you're gonna go make, right? And so going, and it's like I could have been a waiter, I could have done any things. Like I was always going to survive. Survival wasn't an issue. It was just my ego of what was I willing to do it when I fell down, right? And so I should have been taking, max risk. And in certain areas of my life, I did. In certain areas, I didn't. In terms of like emotional risk or taking a travel or et cetera. Like I could have got another job as a screen clerk and climbed the ranks easily. Like I was one of the best screen clerks to ever work. They were screen clerks. I'm going to say that. I'm just going to say that. I missed out, right? I missed out on that, something that can't replace. That period of my life has died. That season is gone, and it is now either I don't have the aptitude or the attitude to go do it that way now.
So you move to Houston, Texas, and become an energy trader, and end up
Correct.
being very successful. One of the big principles of the book is around trying to figure out what your life experience money trade offs are.
When you're on autopilot and you're just like, hey, I got good at this thing produces money, I'm going to keep money. When money becomes the goal and not the tool to fulfill your life, you just keep going on autopilot, right? The purpose, it's like, I always tell people, like, hammers and saws, you can like make the best hammers and saws, but that's not the goal. The goal is to build a house. But some people get stuck just accumulating hammers and saws, hammers and saws, hammers and saws. And so the money is a tool to enhance your life, not the other way around. And so I think even at all income levels, right? You know, people need to get to the concept of enough, and to know enough, you have to get off on a pilot. Like, what experiences do I want in my life? What things are going to fulfill me, right? And then once you have that, you know exactly how much money you need.
Yeah, you talk too
Then,
about time with your kids, and you're a parent. You've got two girls, right?
right.
I've got two boys. And that itself also is like a scarce resource or a trade off, where if you don't spend time with your kids during a certain year, like you don't get that year back. Uh, and
Yeah.
and and so there's also like an investment in that regard. It's like, and you might think to yourself, oh, I need to make this money so that I can provide for my family, but spending time with your kids actually is an investment in them as well, that in some ways might be as or more important. And one of the things I love about you and your approach to things is like you're so hyper rational about everything. Where and we'll
Try
talk
to
a
be.
little bit about this, where you don't stop with this book. You actually have produced a couple of apps to help people optimize their time money trade-offs. But it instinctively made sense to me that if you're spending all your time, and you make this point in the book, if you spend all your time making money for the family and none of your time actually with your family, like time spent with the family would have a much higher return
Right.
for the child than like another couple bucks in a lot of situations.
Right. If you look at money as a tool to fulfill you, right? Like, it's basically a tool to fulfill me. The first level is survival, right? And then after that, we're operating on a want basis, not a need basis. So once the needs are met, we're operating on a want basis. And one of the things that your kids want, whether they consciously or unconsciously, is time with you, memories with you, moments with you. And so piling an extra $1 million on it, but taking away that time from you, is basically giving them something useless, right? What they want is time with you, right? And I'm not saying I have the answer to the optimal balance, right? Like, it's almost an intractable problem, but like, these are the things we need to think about, so that we get more close to the optimal solution of balancing time with kids or family members or loved ones, or what have you.
Yeah, there was a lot of wisdom in your book too about different life stages, where after you made some money being a good grandson, you give your grandma $10,000, and then she doesn't do anything with it, and turns
Yeah.
around and it gives you like a sweater.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Sweater. My mom corrected me. She also gave my daughter like a chain, like a small chain. But like, it really hit home that the utility of money changes as you age. It really becomes useless, because the number of activities that either you enjoy doing or can do declines. Right. Like, and this is just a natural thing. And I used to think, oh, not me. I'm going to be swinging from the chandeliers in the club when I'm 70. You know what I mean? And I look at my grandparents. I'm like, oh, who am I kidding? Like, these are my ancestors. This is the way even my dad, who was kind of out there, and they just shift into gears. And so, the wealth planners or life planners say that, there's the go years, the slow go years, and the no go years, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much universally true for everyone. And so those, I call them Chuck E. Cheese tokens, that those dollars you have, the Chuck E. Cheese tokens for partying or ski trips or doing this, whatever, they expire, right, as you age, and they become useless. And what I mean is that a certain amount of your money just becomes useless to you. It doesn't fulfill you the same way it could have, or at least the activities that fulfill you start to disappear.